There's plenty to think about before you buy a home computer.
Electronic games being heralded by folks in the trade as this year's holiday bestseller.
Children have skipped school or stolen money to play the games.
I'll be looking at the electronic game craze.
And at the end of the tape, I'll be back to tell you how to safeguard your computer.
Hello! My music died. Is today the day the music died? Oh, there we are. Hopefully the balance is alright there. Hello everyone! Welcome to Streamer News! We're doing back-to-back Streamer News episodes for the next couple weeks. We had one last week, we have one this week, we have one next week. So I hope you're prepared. Things are going to be pretty awesome. I'm stoked to be able to be doing these streams more. I want to be streaming on at least a weekly occasion, and this is one way to do so. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started here. Thank you so much, Rush Dark Shadow, for becoming a channel member. They've been great supporting over on the Pokemon TCG streams over on Twitch. But in case you missed it, we had quite a few exciting videos come up since the past stream. We had an awesome breakdown of audio integrators and the type of crazy audio tech that they use in boardrooms and, you know, places that you don't normally see microphones and things like that. And I shot an impromptu update video about my iPad Pro. I had already been working on a kind of walkthrough of my past year with the iPad Pro 2020, and then they had the Apple announcement, and so I combined that with a kind of reaction to the Apple Spring event and my past year with it together, and I think that was a pretty cool video. I released it at midnight because I was trying to get it on the same day that the event happened, and stuff kept getting in my way, so it didn't perform super well because of that, but I wanted to make sure that it was up regardless. And then GoXLR had an update, as we covered last week in Streamer News. That video is up as well. We also have some exciting videos coming next week and over the next couple weeks for the first time in a very long time. I'm actually like scheduled out. Like I have a few weeks worth of like a calendar entry of what videos I have coming and things like that, which I've never really gotten to do. So that's pretty cool. I also wanted to mention real quick, and this will be covered of course during the ad spot as well. But if you're interested in, you've been hearing me talk about my own streaming site, Nebula, which has myself as well as other awesome creators like MKBHD, me, that's a video that hasn't come out yet, things like that. Get early access to videos, extended copies of videos and things like that. If you want access to Nebula, the streaming service that we've partnered with, Curiosity Stream, is having an Earth Day sale this week. I believe they only have a couple more days left where you can get it for under $12 a year and you get both sites, which is insane. So go sign up for that if you haven't already. Otherwise, welcome beautiful people. I hope you all are having a great start to your weekend. This is Streamer News, my usually bi-weekly but currently weekly tech and streaming related news live show and things like that. We've got some awesome music from Backing Track playing in the background, so that will be linked in chat and in the description as we go. Great royalty-free music stuff. And I am really stoked to tell you that my workbench streaming setup, which you may remember back from the apartment days of, you know, my PC building streams and all of that, I have been rebuilding that in the new space, and it is going to be freaking incredible. And the way I'm able to do it in such a condensed space is really awesome. I learned a lot from the last setup. I learned a lot from building everything else in the new studio here, and that is the last piece of the puzzle to really finish off the studio for phase one here, so I can finally do a full tour of the entire home studio here, and I am so stoked to share it with you. It will of course be up first on Nebula, but I am so freaking stoked. By the way, if someone's asking how to go live in 4K, I have a whole video of that up on my channel. Alright, let's get into today's topics. We have quite a few topics. None of them, I hit the microphone, none of them are necessarily heavy hitters. But there was a lot to talk about this week, which was part of the reason I wanted to go ahead and get an extra Streamer News up this week, and even though I already had all of my video slots and things like that, just because there were so many things of news that came out over the past couple weeks. I swear my computer just made a USB disconnect sound. I feel like I'm imagining that though. All right, let's get into the topics. So first and foremost here, this is from the Discord for the Twitch Studio streaming app that I covered 2 years ago now. I think I covered it in 2019 when I was streaming what's the game called? Ion Fury. But they have finally released an update that includes an in-game overlay for Windows, which allows you to, whoa, hold on. We interrupt this broadcast. Did my own moderators link to our streaming server, to the music we're using get deleted? It says message deleted by the Google moderator team. Hold up. What just happened? All right, I sent it. Let's see if it gets deleted if I send it. That was bizarre. Back on topic. They have released for the Windows client only at the moment an in-game overlay, which allows you to manage your live stream and the like while you're in-game. And at this point, classic, or well, not classic, but vanilla OBS Studio is the only game streaming app that's mainly game streaming focused that doesn't have an overlay. XSplit has it now with it's Gamecaster now. Gamecaster has it. Something else just introduced. Streamlabs OBS, I believe, has one. I could be mistaken, but I think they implemented something. If not, then OBS and Streamlabs OBS both need one. But I think it's time for OBS to implement an overlay. I personally don't find it super valuable. I think you're going to be primarily, I think you're going to have the best results while streaming with multiple monitors by, streaming with multiple monitors. Even if you have a small one, something to have your chat, to have your stream controls, to have something else you want to reference while you're streaming up. I think that's forever going to be the best result. But for people who really can't do that, who are on laptops or who just can't do a second monitor and need an in-game overlay, this could be for you. Twitch Studio is a great app that allows you to stream to Twitch very simply without, without needing to know complex OBS stuff. And for those who's asking, yes, I use OBS Studio here for our streams and pretty much everything I do. Thank you for joining channel memberships, Aurelia. Much appreciated. Google is completely cool with me posting affiliate links, but links to royalty free music is where they draw the line. Yeah, that was weird. Hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. We got to figure that out. That was strange. Next up, I am so pleased to announce, not that I'm the one announcing it, but to talk about that Jim Ryan has announced that PlayStation has backtracked on their stance or their decision to close the PS3 and PS Vita store. The PSP store, which you could only access through the PS3 anymore anyway, is still closing in July as expected, but the PS Vita and PS3 stores will remain online. You will still be able to download your games, play your games, your DLC only games, and you'll still be able to purchase new games, which is really exciting. A lot of people kept calling it backpedaling and stuff, but realistically, how can someone win if that's how you're going to describe it? IMO, they saw the reaction to the decision that they made and said, hey, let's not make that decision. That is the best possible outcome of something having already been set in motion. Obviously, I guess the best possible outcome would be that they didn't set it at all and that they introduced PS1, 2, 3 games into PS Now or a emulator for PS4 and PS5. But they have said, hey, you can kill it. We saw the result. You can keep buying them and so on. I am nervous about this. So I want to be upfront and be like, yeah, we need to congratulate them or, applaud the correct decision. We need to react appropriately. This is the only way, we're going to get them to make those decisions. But at the same time, given that they put in all the steps and all the legwork and everything else to actually make this decision in the first place, I have to wonder if this is just delaying the inevitable. Are they going to turn around and in a year or two be like, all right, the hype has died down. Let's go ahead and kick it off anyway. Or as Rice suggested, maybe they just saw an influx of cash from the store of everyone buying up their games and are like, well, it's making money again. Let's keep it around. I'm nervous and I guess a little cynical that they're just going to kill it off again in a year or two. and just delaying the inevitable to seem like the good guy, and then in a year or two they're going to be like, well, we can't afford to do it anymore. Sorry guys, we tried our best, and that's just going to be bull. But I really think that they need to still do more to preserve the ability to play these games on newer consoles, and their current existing stance, as I covered whenever I talked about this last time, on backwards compatibility and Jim Ryan's insistence that older PlayStation games are just ancient looking and ugly and not worth playing. They have a lot of ground to make up for their terrible stances here. And so I am cautiously optimistic. I would still go ahead and purchase your games when you can and back them up and soft mod your PlayStation 3 and all of that, because, you know, you never know how this is gonna land. Oh, also one of the reasons I felt like a little cynical that they may not be doing it for the gamers in mind is there were quite a few developers, an unknown amount, but quite a few, who were still working on PS Vita games and going to release them, and they were not given enough adequate, like, heads up or notice about this happening, to the extent that they may have had to scrap their entire game release and it never see the light of day because of this kind of thing. Because on top of the you know, the store closing and all of that, there were also limiting at what point people could get, or developers could get, licenses to actually sell their game on the store, and so, or even in physical copy. And so there's a lot involved there with the developers, that they may have listened to the developers saying, hey, we still have all these games in play, and maybe sent some sort of internal memo saying, okay, everyone working on X, Y, or Z, get it done, but after this point, no more projects are going to be approved, and then we're shutting it down. You never really know. There was a PlayStation Japan executive talking about playing a brand new PS Vita release right as soon as this was announced, and it looked kind of bad because that was something that a lot of people may not get access to due to that change. So I don't know that this decision was made with game preservation or the gamers in mind so much as something on the back end changed and they decided it was worth it because it's a megacorp. That's how it works. But for now, we need to applaud the net positive result that we want here, and I am stoked for it regardless. Next up in gaming, EA has announced both through Respawn and through their Battlefield franchise that we are getting Apex Legends Mobile and Battlefield Mobile. And especially with Apex Legends Mobile, they're talking about how that they're starting off regional beta tests, and that this is a game designed from the ground up specifically for mobile. So it's not going to be just a straight port of PC Apex Legends or console Apex Legends over to mobile. And it's also not going to have crossplay or anything like that, because mobile players are just going to get absolutely destroyed, especially with the movement. This both makes me happy because I think it will potentially be a much better game for it, but also nervous because it could be a much worse game for it, because it could, like they say, it's true to the original, but realistically, if they're building something completely different based on a completely different control scheme, it's going to feel completely different. Like, I have praised and praised Call of Duty Mobile for bringing back the classic arcade feeling Call of Duty experience that I love. I can pick up a controller, play it on my iPad, and have a good time. But realistically, it doesn't feel a whole lot like classic Call of Duty in terms of movement and clunkiness and responsiveness. It feels like I'm translating through 5 different control schemes to get to a rebuilt emulator that has the same graphics. So I'm excited to test it out. Realistically though, like I'm becoming more and more an advocate of proper mobile games, not crappy, you know, runners or puzzle games or whatever, but crappy, I'm a fan of proper mobile games that are good experiences, and I'm becoming more and more of an advocate for them. But at the same time, with first-person shooters, I cannot play those for any length of time without a phone like the Red Magic gaming phones I've covered or whatever. Actually, I have one of them down here, I believe. No, I do not. Okay. Well, I've had a couple of those Red Magic gaming phones, which have the triggers on the phones. That's realistically the only way I can comfortably play a mobile shooter for any length of time, because it feels more like a controller. But generally speaking, I find on touchscreen controls, even for non-shooters, there's no tactile feedback, there's no locking your thumbs into place. It's just not a great experience. And so I end up having to play with the controller, which removes some of the portability and mobile aspect of it. And so I don't know. But I'm excited to see what becomes of Battlefield and Apex on modern consoles. The last time Battlefield came to mobile games, it was not great. So I'm excited to see what happens. Next up, you may have noticed the Linus Tech Tips video where they talked about cloud gaming, and Linus tried using xCloud through what was effectively a little Android box, because that's the only thing it was, available on other than Xbox, and it was not a great experience because they didn't really have things working yet. Well, they are already about to start beta testing again xCloud on desktop browser stuff again in the first place, but to do so they have revamped the experience by partnering with one of our previous sponsors, Rainway. I talked about in a previous Streamer News episode that Rainway was pivoting a little bit from just being their own game streaming company to offering the tech they have developed for game streaming to other companies to allow them to invest in their cloud infrastructure and get cloud gaming going a little bit better. And they have partnered with Xbox here to get xCloud going and more smooth over on the PC, which is awesome. And then along with that, Sony released some sort of weird statement about how that they're revamping or investing more in their cloud gaming strategy that will be unique and only on PlayStation. And I don't know why they insist on using this only on PlayStation language, because at this point, they're also not only releasing things on PlayStation. Like, all of their exclusives come out on PC at least a couple years later. And as someone in our Discord server pointed out, stores even have to go back and put stickers over the case labels that say only on PlayStation to cover up the fact that, like, for example, Days Gone is no longer only on PlayStation. So I realize that they're probably trying not to sound just like Xbox by saying console exclusive or whatever. Saying only on PlayStation is a little silly, especially since PS Now is available on PC. And in fact, one of the other news topics that we have related to PS Now is that they're finally rolling out 1080p streaming for it. So I don't know what they're going at here by saying that they're going to make it unique and only on PlayStation. People keep getting caught up with we're having conversations with Microsoft about exchanging ideas. This is highly unlikely to be with Microsoft, as in the gaming division, the Xbox division, or anything like that. That's mainly going to be for Azure, the services, the cloud services that Microsoft offers that they use for PS Now. But we'll see apparently when the time is right, whatever they come up with, because PlayStation's between Game Pass and cloud streaming stuff. PlayStation's falling kind of behind in a lot of areas that people don't treat as mainstream gaming, but actually affects like their market share in significant ways. Sorry, my mouth is already getting dry. Oh yeah, speaking of Game Pass, Sony accidentally published an announcement that was then kind of taken aback for a PlayStation Plus Video Pass that is available for all PS Plus members from April 22nd of this year, which was yesterday, but I don't think anything has come of it yet until April 22nd of 2022. No one knows what it actually is yet. People are assuming that it includes, movies and things like that, because Sony also has a movie division, all of that jazz. But we don't really know what it is. Apparently, it's currently available to PS Plus subscribers in Poland. It was only a test service released, but we could be looking at a scenario where Game Pass is offering free trials for, Disney Plus and things like that, where this could be offering access to Sony movies or something, which could be pretty interesting. That's about long form content. Let's talk about short form content real quick. YouTube is rolling out an update for the Shorts beta that they have been running. Shorts are the short form vertical videos that you can upload that have their own little shelf on mobile and things like that. There have been a few changes, not all of which are even talked about in this post, but specifically from this post, they are rolling out changes to the notification system so that Shorts won't actually count against your notification limit. So if you're unaware, on YouTube, you have 3-ish notifications that your channel can send out to a subscriber per 24-hour period before it stops sending them, regardless of how they're signed up, whether they're on the send me all notifications or not. So 3 videos and then only 1 community post related notification per day. And unfortunately, that counts for both channel members and public community posts. So if you send out a channel member community post and then you send out a public one, your public users aren't getting notified of it. Well, because Shorts still count as standard videos on your channel. They still publish to your subscriptions feed. They still go to your channel page. They still are treated as normal videos. They have been sent out as notifications, which people have not wanted to do or not wanted to, you know, count against their count, or it makes them post less frequently. They're now rolling out a change. I don't think it's fully out yet, where those shorts will not count against your notification limit. That way you can roll out more of them, which is pretty interesting. They're also rolling out new places for shorts to show up on the mobile app. And if you start watching them on mobile from the subscription feed, then they make it much easier to start watching more shorts from that very short, which is pretty neat as well. Unfortunately, a change that has come from this, and I'm going to pull up my own channel page as an example here, is the shorts shelf you could add to your channel page now shows up on desktop for some reason. Originally, I even made my own short tutorial about this. This was a feature that, as far as I could tell, was only supposed to show up on mobile, and it only showed up on mobile. So I had it featured at the top of my page because it didn't affect desktop users, but mobile users could pull it up and immediately see the shorts that I have. Well, now they show up on desktop for some reason, and I have not seen them address this at all. And so I have moved it down because my desktop users probably don't care about shorts, but that's a change that they have not addressed that is coming out as well that I just wanted to mention here. Next up, if you have opened, or updated rather, Windows 10 recently, you might want to keep, or roll back an update, or keep delaying updates if you haven't, because once again, if you remember my trail of Windows 10 update videos from 2018, where they just kept breaking stuff every single update, and that was before they switched to the like half 1 and half 2 update cycle. The latest one has been causing, of course, BSODs and things like that that don't always affect everybody, but apparently there is a pretty trackable, like, multiple people notice scenario of Windows 10 having worse gaming performance with this latest update. So this is the update number. If you updated it and you notice that your gaming performance and things like that is worsened, then you might want to roll back that update. I had a lot of fun. I will say, I had a lot of fun in it was 2018. Making a bunch of videos on those Windows 10 updates, because it was just such a baffling cycle. We were coming off of kind of the heat of, realizing just how bad the Windows 10 update cycle got with the with the layoff of their beta testing group that they had internally and all of that. And I had a situation in 2019 where 2017 rather, where the 1709 update, I believe it was over the period of 6 months, it would start forcing itself to install, regardless of what I was doing, giving me no option to delay it, upwards of 6 times per day, and failing every single time, taking at least an hour each time, to the point that my computer was basically unusable. So I had come off of that just like insanity, where I was forced to reinstall Windows with the latest, it was like 1803 at the time, Windows 10 update, in order to get past them trying to brick my PC as far as I could tell, into a year of back-to-back-to-back just major screw-ups with the updates, where they were deleting files and just doing all sorts of stuff. And I'm at the point now where if there's a broken Windows update, I'm just like, yeah, just put off update. If you care about this, those kinds of little hiccups, put off updates a little bit as long as possible. I'd say if you get an update notification, wait like a month or so and you're probably good. But, Windows be Windows in, I guess. We have a couple stories about Dogecoin here. As it started going up quite a bit, and I've invested a little bit in it myself just to play around, because I don't ever jump in on these things that supposedly make money. I probably won't make any. I'll probably just lose it. But we have our first major, as far as I can tell, electronics retailer, or e-retailer, not just electronics, but major store that's accepting Dogecoin as payment, which is Newegg, which is kind of fascinating. And I specifically bring that up. We also have a story that one of my own local to my area law firms is accepting Dogecoin as payments, which is just bizarre to me. But of course, it's one run by younger people, of course, but they're accepting Dogecoin, Bitcoin, and Litecoin as a payment opportunity for a law firm. I don't imagine a situation where that's like normalized and makes a whole lot of sense, but that's a thing. But I wanted to share an experience that I had with Bitcoin. You see, oh, I haven't been showing you all the topics here. Lol. So here's the Newegg accepting Dogecoin. Obviously 420 was Dogecoin day. It did not spike to $1 as everyone was predicting on Dogecoin day. And here is the story about the Louisville law firm. I want to share a story because you see, in 2013, Bitcoin was not difficult to mine. You could mine it with these little USB ASIC miners, and I actually still have them in a drawer. I have 2 of them. And you could just load them up in a USB hub, put on a little USB fan, and mine dollars worth of Bitcoin. Well, in 2013, Bitcoin wasn't worth much. It didn't seem like it was really going anywhere, and I got tired of dealing with it, especially as the difficulty started ramping up and it became less accessible for me to mine it. And so I wanted to use it. Everyone talked about how this would replace currency, how it would, you know, how it would be the way we buy things in the future. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Let's participate in this. And one service that was accepting Bitcoin as payment at the time was Humble Bundle. And so I made a couple transactions to Humble Bundle. I actually made 3 total. I purchased the Alan Wake bundle, a Humble Weekly bundle, and then just some sort of Humble Bundle for what amounts to about $3,000 today worth of Bitcoin. At the time, it was like $1 at most. It was like super cheap. It was cheaper than buying the Humble Bundle normally. I was like, oh, heck yeah, this is fine. Well, for the singular purchase, it was worth what is equivalent today in Bitcoin, $2,300. That's a lot of money. And I would say that that kind of informed my overall bias against crypto as being a proper, like, purchasable or usable currency for that kind of thing, rather than just an investment or a stock. Because if you're treating something as money, you expect it to hold value from the point that you spend it to another point in time. If I go spend $1 on a can of Sunkist, for example, I don't want to come and find out later that that $1 I spent on a Sunkist could now buy me an RTX 3090. That feels like I'm ripped off. That's not stability in your currency. And so, I don't know. And it's one of those things, it's like, I didn't know. I would have done something else with it along the way. You know, I can't look back and do whatever. But I could have quite a bit of money right now. And that's just always interesting to see. We're going to hit a commercial break real quick, and I will see you on the other side.
PlayStation!
Another problem I have is with YouTube and not being able to include everything that I want into a video that the algorithm will appreciate. If you're interested in more thoughts on my experience with video editing on iPad Pro, it's in the extended cut that's available exclusively over on my own video streaming platform, Nebula. My videos are higher quality there, ad-free, and often extended from the YouTube versions, just like this one. The site is called Nebula, and we've partnered with CuriosityStream. Nebula features YouTube's top education creators such as Legal Eagle, Thomas Frank, and Low Spec Gamer. CuriosityStream saw what we were doing for educational content and wanted to partner up. We've worked out a deal where if you sign up with the link down below, you not only get access to CuriosityStream and their library of thousands of educational and documentary content, but you get access to Nebula for free for the entire duration of your subscription to CuriosityStream. Even better, for those of you watching the week this is posted, CuriosityStream is running an Earth Day sale from April 19th to the 25th, getting you access to both CuriosityStream and Nebula for 41% off. That's under $12 a year. Absolutely incredible bargain. While you're there, check out Games on the Battlefield to learn about the significance of sports as a pastime on the fields of the First World War. Head to curiositystream.com/epos for the best deal in streaming, and I get access to both sites for under $12 per year. It's crazy. Just do it. While you're updating your installation of OBS, you should also consider updating your stream layouts with our sponsor, Nerd or Die. This is their sick new package, Amused. I love Nerd or Die's packages because they come with a variety of colors and configuration options that you can mix and match to make your own. Or If you buy the full package, you get the After Effects files to really make it your own. It's easy to install and affordable too. Nerd or Die provides more than just a template, they provide the full stream experience. Head over to eposvox.gg/nerdordie and save 15% with my name at checkout.
Sega is rolling out a new video game console this week.
It's one world. Why view it through two windows? Panasonic introduces the 36-inch SVGA TV.
I wanted to give a huge shout out to Nori SS for the super chat for the baby. Much appreciated. His birthday is coming up. I can't believe it's been a year. I was doing streamer news when all of that was happening too. Like, I can't believe it's been that long. Someone said mini adverts. There were literally 2, the same amount I do every streamer news show. So you can deal. You get an hour of awesome content for it. Intermission so I can get a drink and take a break. Honestly, that's the main reason I do it. So I have a voice rest and a drink break here real quick. But I did want to mention again, Nebula, this is the week to sign up if you haven't done it yet. It's $12 for an entire year to 2 different streaming services, all with great content, both from YouTubers and all the documentary and educational stuff over on Curiosity Stream. And like, I have a whole video which is extended from the YouTube cut and uploaded already that's coming out sometime next week. That's going to be a lot shorter on YouTube and things like that. Lots of good stuff. You got MKBHD over here now as well. Lindsay Ellis, Renee Ritchie, a lot of awesome, Low Spec Gamer, a lot of awesome creators. And it really helps keep things going and helps even do things like, you know, make the new studio happen and things like that. It really supports the channel. And I've been doing my best. It is not super, you know, friendly to my workflow, but I'm doing my best to get content there early and to make extra content for the people who are watching over there to make it worth it, as I think that's something I really want to offer. Unfortunately, I don't have any unboxings today. I don't know if I said that, but we're going to get on to the next topic, which is AMD released a driver update. It finally enabled AV1 Decode support, which is the new open source super high efficiency video codec on the 6000 series GPUs. As well as it supposedly lets you just install the drivers without installing the Radeon software. However, as a couple people from our Discord server has confirmed, it doesn't entirely work yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I'll just bring on AV1. By the way, hardware might start getting even worse. So we've obviously had you know, silicon and semiconductor shortages for products being released for a long time now at this point, and it's even affecting things like my parents helped us buy a new fridge for Christmas for our new house because the fridge that came with the house is awful and broken. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's broken and needs to be replaced. And we have no idea when we're ever going to get it because everything's on back order because of the semiconductor shortages. It's affecting quite literally everything. And that has included with PC building stuff. Linus just released a video about building a computer you can build now using an iGPU with MSI and stuff like that, and then you buy a GPU later. While other components are already getting a little bit harder to find, and hard drives and solid state drives might become more difficult to get as well, as there's a new crypto miner thing called Chia, I believe, which uses your this doesn't make any sense to me, and the more like we describe these bizarre ways of mining crypto, the more it just sounds absurd to me. But there's this new crypto thing that uses the empty space on your storage drives to effectively create or mine a new form of crypto, which means that Chinese crypto miners are already buying in bulk to get hard drives and solid state drives and all of that. And so one of the easier components to get, which we finally, I felt like, come down on after some major flooding like 10 years ago, storage might actually be hard to get now. It's wild, and I feel like I said, the more we describe, oh yeah, it fills up your hard drive and then spits out virtual money, it just sounds insane. But it's a thing that's happening now. It was created by one of the BitTorrent creators, which is fascinating. And it's supposed to use less power because hard drives and solid state drives obviously run on lower power than graphics cards. I don't know. We got another story from Tweak down here. We have a new monitor from Acer, which is a 32x9 super mega ultra wide whatever. It's 49 inches. The resolution is 5120 by 1440. It runs at 240 hertz, and it's a mini LED. So it's a 5K by 1440p ultra wide at 240 hertz with mini LED, which is pretty wild. It's probably going to be an absolutely gorgeous monitor for work and for gaming because the 240 hertz, the adaptive sync, it has G-Sync and FreeSync support. It's got 3 HDMI 2.1 plugs as well as a DisplayPort 1.4 plug. It is absolutely wild. However, it is $2,300. So what is really interesting about this kind of monitor, other than obviously the price? Oh yeah, Samsung has a G9 coming with basically the same specs. 5K by 1440p, 240 hertz, except theirs is literally double the price at $4,600. No one should buy a monitor for $4,600. No one. There's a lot of things I would pay a lot of money for and have paid way too much money for. There is no computer monitor on Earth that is worth nearly $5,000. None. $2,300 is still way too expensive for most people, but that seems infinitely more affordable by comparison, by being literally half the price. So it looks great. It seems like it would be great for editing, Photoshop work, and for gaming. And what's really interesting is by being 32x9, it is literally two 16x9 monitors together. So you could effectively split it into two 1440p 240 hertz monitors without any bezels and just have them side by side for gaming or editing or whatever and use them that way as well, which is pretty neat as well. But holy balls, that is a wide boy and an expensive boy, but nowhere near as expensive as Samsung's absurd $4,600. No one should pay. I couldn't imagine paying $2,300 for a monitor. And I have some very expensive monitors, but $4,600. That's getting into BVM or PVM territory, which are professional video monitors used in, video studios for colorists and things like that. That's getting into that territory. I don't know. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot. Anyway. Next up, we have a tiny Intel Comic Lake motherboard, which is apparently not much bigger than a Raspberry Pi. It has a single DIMM slot here, the CPU socket, and then like the chipset. And that is it. No PCIe slot, no M.2 really, nothing else, which is pretty awesome. I could really use some smaller x86 computers like these, or even like some of the NUCs, for some of my video switching tools I'm working on here in the studio. But, yeah, this is pretty cool, I gotta say. To be barely bigger than a Raspberry Pi, I just wanted to highlight it. So there is an article here on Medium which has someone analyzing and breaking down an analysis of Twitter's algorithm in terms of featuring posts. And effectively they have found that Twitter buries or shows external links a lot less. It is, and we knew this, like this is one of those things where realistically we already knew this tangibly. Like we knew that this was the case, and a new trend with posting your videos on Twitter is to upload a clip or a picture from the video as your main tweet and then post the link to it in the follow-up tweet. And that was the new strategy to get it seen a little bit better, because Twitter would feature native videos or images, and then you click the link in the second tweet. But this kind of confirms what we already know, where they are burying, for example, your YouTube links or things like that. I do think this will change, however. As we covered in a previous streamer news, that they are looking and testing enabling YouTube autoplay native within the Twitter app on your iOS device and mobile devices, which I think the goal there is to still allow people to feature that kind of content, but allow it to play natively in the app so that they keep people in the app. Because all these social media platforms, all of their algorithmic juice goes towards keeping people within the app that they're on. And so having this, you know, keep you from leaving while still playing the YouTube videos, I think will be beneficial overall, but we shall see. By the way, Discord is supposedly saved for now. They have decided that they want to stay independent and look into an IPO, a public offering, rather than being purchased by Microsoft, which is interesting because they were talking to Microsoft at for a month or so, well, a month or so ago, about being purchased for like $10 billion. And apparently Microsoft was really interested and they were actually talking about it. But they have decided to part ways with that deal and are seeking out to stay independent, which I think is fairly good news overall for the gamers, for everyone who wants to use it and for it to not get, you know, eaten up into a Microsoft service or, you know, directed by a big megacorp. But of course, they do still have to figure out monetization for themselves. And that is something they have certainly struggled with. I did want to tease that Gamecaster, formerly from XSplit, the free game streaming app, has now released their own royalty-free DMCA-safe music for your live stream. Now, this is pretty generic stuff. It's, you know, the EDM, hip-hop, lo-fi stuff that all the royalty-free services can churn out in mass. And if you just need background music, it's great. Go for it. You can do it. But if you're expecting anything super unique or high quality, they're probably not going to offer much. But another free music option for streamers is always a good thing. And so I'm happy to see that they are doing so specifically from a streaming app. Like, that's pretty powerful to have done so as a streaming app and release that to your users as well as everyone else. Like, it's available. The website doesn't work for me, but it's available on, oh, that's right here, Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. So you don't have to use Gamecaster to use their music, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, I think Blizzard is finally seeing the end of days. Like, we knew this was coming anyway. We knew this was happening. This has been the writing on the wall. But another long-term Blizzard vet has left the company after a 19-year-long career. Jeff Kaplan, the head of Overwatch, the director of Overwatch, has left the company, leaving the fate or the status or the creative direction of Overwatch 2 as a big question mark or a big concern. And what's interesting here is in his, you know, note about leaving the company, he ends it with, "Never accept the world as it appears to be. Always dare to see it for what it could be. I hope you do the same." Now, you could read this in two ways, and obviously I am purely speculating here. This could mean nothing at all, but you could read this in two ways. One, as this is effectively what he has done in his time at Blizzard. Like, he didn't accept the world as he wanted it to be. He went in and he changed it to make the games he wanted to see or whatever. But you could also read it as him being unhappy with I mean, obviously he's leaving. You don't leave in the middle of a project like that you're the director of without some creative differences or some pressure or just being fed up with management or whatever. But you could also read it as he's unhappy with the way the world or, you know, the Overwatch development or Blizzard as a company is, and he wants to change that. And so he's doing so by leaving the company and doing something somewhere else probably that he considers better. Potentially. He could be going to any number of other studios or, you know, forming his own whatever. You know, so a lot of these people go to different places. People in chat are bringing up Dreamhaven or the Riot team that is building up their own Riot MMO and all of that. So Sir Crest points out that's a quote directly from Overwatch, which makes sense, but also, like, when you whether it's a quote or not, like, you choose your parting words very specifically, and the quote still means something to him in that context. You don't just randomly pull out a quote that's from something you worked on without it having personal meaning to you. So, yeah, there's that. Also, I wanted to mention that Diablo Immortal, it's currently closed alpha testing in New Zealand and Australia, and the feedback has actually been really positive. I'm still really looking forward to it with all the apprehension towards Blizzard and the state of the company and the games they're making in general being not great. I am looking forward to a mobile-oriented Diablo. I'm a huge fan of what I call the Diablo-like genre, the action RPG. I'm not into the super hardcore, like, skill tree, crazy mapping out nature of it. So Path of Exile has always been a little bit too overbearing for me, or daunting. But I have enjoyed, like, the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games. Like, I enjoy the action and the combat and the basic loot grind aspect of it. And so something like that I can play on mobile that's optimized for mobile seems pretty exciting to me. Hopefully they don't screw it up. I don't usually cover a ton of rumors, but I specifically wanted to talk about this rumor from PC Gamer, talking that Microsoft is apparently planning a new Windows storefront for Windows 10 to replace the current much disliked Windows Store. I hit the grill of my microphone. The aim is to produce a modern and fluid user interface, as well as bring changes to the policies that govern what kind of apps can be submitted to the store by developers. So here's where I'm kind of confused by this. If I pull up the Microsoft Store now, like if I just pull it up, realistically, this looks like every other, I mean, you could say it's a bad thing, but like, oh, I pulled it up on the wrong side. It looks like every other major storefront. You have a fairly modern UI that matches Windows 10. You have great visuals, different categories of app sorting. Like every other app store has these kinds of things. This speed from it also isn't terrible. If you have a good internet connection, you can also get really high speed downloads from it. The main problem that the Windows Store has had since the Windows 8 days has been the app ecosystem, and that has been improving in time. Like right now, the homepage is full of things you recognize. You have Netflix, you have Roblox, you have Minecraft, you have Amazon Prime Video, you have freaking iTunes, iCloud, you've got, you know, some generic games, but you have games you recognize, Phantasy Star Online, you've got the Xbox games integrations, you have Microsoft Office instead of all the clones, you have Raid Shadow Legends, you have like recognizable stuff, whereas in the Windows 8 days and the early Windows 10 days, the app ecosystem was just knockoffs of everything else. Knockoffs of Office, there's clones of OBS in here that are terrible and paywalled, you know, lots of generic apps. And the problem was there wasn't the app support, so no one had a real reason to use the store, and then when they did, it was a bad time. The bad time, however, comes from the UI-specific integrations for choosing where your applications are installed, for moving them between computers, for applying them to your user profile, for moving your games between systems. The overall experience of going in here and being like, yo, I want Facebook Messenger, get it, it's gonna download and install it, is fine. Like realistically, it's the same way it works in every other application. If you haven't linked up with your Microsoft account, you don't even need to enter your password half the time. And then I do hate that it doesn't auto-update apps very frequently for me, so I have to come in here and be like, yeah, I guess update these. But otherwise, I'm actually fairly happy with how it works overall. It is buggy, it is a little unreliable, but those are tweaks you can make without completely redoing the store. The big change I think that they're focusing on here, that they mentioned in the article specifically, is that they are allowing that theoretically, again, this is a rumor, would be that they allow developers to submit Win32 apps instead of having to convert them to the MSIX format or the UWP stuff. Now, I'm guessing, honestly, that specific detail is not something I'm super familiar with, because I know that there are now Win32 apps on the Windows Store in terms of the core application. I'm guessing that in order to have done that, they have repackaged them with this MSIX format instead of just requiring them to be UWP apps, and that was already a positive change, because already, like I said, there are OBS clones on the Windows Store right now. You can download a $5 copy of OBS Studio for some bizarre freaking reason. It's not going to be as updated. It's a fork of it. Like, this is stupid. Don't do this. But it's obviously a Win32 app. It's just packaged in whatever store formatting or whatever is involved here. So, theoretically, it would allow a lot more developers to immediately list their applications on the Windows Store, which includes the OBS devs. Like, theoretically, this change would allow OBS to go straight on the Windows Store. And this is a big change that I find important to the Windows ecosystem on the whole. I think having a native app store where you don't have to download programs from random websites. You can actually just download them through an app store like you have on Mac, like you have on Linux. For most major applications, it's very beneficial. But I don't think you need to throw out the store that is here and make a new one. I don't think that makes entire sense, especially since this matches most of Windows UI and things like that regardless. I think people are saying they want it to look like the new Xbox UI. I hope it doesn't look like the Xbox dashboard itself, because that has been an abysmal experience and it's impossible to find anything. But honestly, this isn't too far detached from it either. So, I don't know. I do hope that the specific changes of enabling unpackaged Win32 apps and fixing things like search, because Windows search is terrible on any Windows-related thing, and allowing developers to more easily list their programs natively and keep them updated for free natively through the store sounds awesome. I would love to see that. I feel like if they just completely scrap this and throw users into something completely new and unfamiliar, that's still going to burn the average computer user that doesn't keep up with all this stuff, and make it a little bit more complicated. I do think there are improvements to come in terms of managing your library, in terms of content and apps, like coming in here, like this is a little bit less nice than some platforms, but I don't think they need to just like completely throw out everything and start and like make a whole new store. That just doesn't seem like the right call to me personally. Nice little update. Capture One, which a lot of people actually prefer for photo editing to Adobe Lightroom these days, is becoming M1 native for Apple hardware in May. Pretty nice. And they have acknowledged that they would like their product team to look into making an iPad Pro M1 option as well. Don't know if anything will come from that, but since they're already making it for M1, theoretically porting it over to the iPad other than touch controls should be the same. Microsoft DirectStorage, which if you are unfamiliar with, it's a technology that is currently only available on the PlayStation 5, but it's basically an API to allow super fast SSDs to be used and loaded from in games through your processor much more quickly. Excuse me. This technology was originally meant to, or said to only be coming to PCIe Gen 4 SSDs due to the speed, the chipset speeds, and all of that. Apparently it will work on PCIe 3.0 drives as well, which is really good and important because there are a lot more of those out in the wild and a lot more slots for those out in the wild than PCIe 4.0. It's coming to those drives as well. It will just be slower. So that will be pretty interesting. Currently, there's no PC games that supports this. A lot of people have theorized that Halo Infinite and maybe the new Battlefield will support these. We don't know. It may not. Given that they're still developing it and haven't released it yet, those games may release before it's enabled and it not happen. But theoretically, you can see much more improved scenarios for loading stuff in your games through this technology. Honestly, I have found that the biggest upgrade you can give yourself for gaming loading time is taking your games from a hard drive to a SATA SSD. And past that, loading times haven't been a huge deal. But I think what this kind of will unlock is some of the more like bigger worlds and streaming capabilities of games. For example, Spider-Man Miles Morales, where it feels like you're going through the entirety of New York. I don't think you can always do that with games that are built to not support it. However, you also, with PC, the issue is you can't just build a game to support that one feature because it's going to be installed on a plethora of systems that don't have that feature. And so I don't know how much committing we will get to that, but it will be interesting to see regardless. Puget put out an article this past week covering which formats get hardware decode support in DaVinci Resolve 17.1, because this has not really been documented anywhere. And this is a little confusing for some because DaVinci Resolve Studio, by the way, has a dedicated GPU-based encode and decode engine that is blazing fast and works with pretty much any footage. But that is still a little bit like, it's still relying on a different part of the graphics card than relying on the native like NVDEC decoding of specific formats. And so you will see here, 8-bit 420 has GPU decode across the board, but not 10-bit 420, which I don't think I realized for H.264. And then H.265 does get 10-bit 420 decode on most platforms, as well as 12-bit. You will see, however, and this is something I'm covering in my video on it, should I ever get to finish it, the Intel QuickSync for 11th gen processors. It decodes pretty much everything in HEVC on the processor's iGPU, which means that if you get an Intel 11th gen processor, you will have a much smoother timeline performance if you keep the iGPU enabled when video editing, which is pretty bonkers because it decodes everything. Whereas NVIDIA cards have not enabled 422 support. For some reason, 444 is not listed here. I know for a fact that NVDEC does support 444 decode. Like that's in the NVIDIA support matrix, but they do not have 422 support. And this has been something that has been contentious more and more lately because most cameras these days are outputting H.264 or H.265 in 422. And then suddenly it's performing way worse because their graphics cards aren't decoding it. They have to decode it on CPU. So hopefully we see some work towards this. And then they have a test so you can perform it for yourself to see what's actually working for you. But yeah, those Intel 11th gen processors are pretty freaking awesome. Speaking of video decoding and encoding, Google, it's officially come out that Google has built their entire own dedicated silicon, basically, for encoding AV1 videos. Now, this talks about their overall video pipeline and bandwidth saving and blah, blah, blah. But the interesting part is this card right here, the Argos. This is an entire board with video processing chips on it designed to encode video to AV1, which is freaking awesome. This is one of the first that we actually get to see AV1 encoder hardware, and it just connects apparently through a PCIe card. Although this is describing basically a whole server, so maybe that's separate. Maybe that's a separate card. But basically they have a dedicated AV1 encoder, which has a bunch of different cores for encoding and a little bit of cores for decoding the source material. And it can encode to VP9 or AV1, which is freaking phenomenal. I will sell my soul, basically, if they can get my hands on one as well as the software to use it to run my own testing with it, because I've wanted to test out just a hardware AV1 encoder for so long. But this is how they're doing it. YouTube has been producing AV1 videos for a very long time. In fact, even a random music video from a group I watched called Halocene, like a year or 2 years ago, when I downloaded one of the videos, it was in AV1. And I had to convert it to play it on anything else because AV1 decode wasn't big at the time. But they have been putting out AV1 decode videos for a while, and this is how they're speeding it up because doing it on raw CPUs would kind of be a problem. Microsoft is enabling Linux GUI apps finally on the Windows subsystem for Linux, the WSL. So for a couple years now, you've been able to run dedicated kernels of Linux on your Windows PC. So for example, I can open up, it looks like it's broken at the moment because I haven't done anything with it for a while. But you can run basically Ubuntu or Manjaro or whatever. You can run distros as their own little isolated kernel within Windows, which is great for running like automation stuff and things like that. I've not played around with it too much. I was able to get like some degree of a UI working on some programs back in the day when I was messing with it. But in the dev channel of Windows Insider Builds, which is apparently the really scary and unstable channel, you can now actually run full isolated, X or Wayland GUI apps within Windows. And so what I really want to see is a scenario where someone tests a game running on DXVK and Proton and all of that through the Windows subsystem for Linux versus native on Windows, because you can run it through DXVK through the Windows subsystem for Linux back on Windows, because it's all GPU accelerated and stuff too. On top of the fact that there's just some exciting possibilities for it. And if there's a Linux specific program you can run, you can do it just kind of natively with this thing. Also, they're updating the task manager to basically throttle specific programs if they're using too many resources, which is pretty neat as well. Twitter is rolling out professional profiles, which allow people who use Twitter for work, be it nonprofits, publishers, and creators, to display specific information about their business on their profile. Now, the only example they have now is basically an address of where their business is located. So for online creators, that's not super useful. But since they say creatives too, I think they're going to introduce some other options. And so we might get a little banner or something where we can link our website or our YouTube channel. That would be pretty freaking cool. And I'm stoked to see what they do with this. But so far, they've literally just kind of announced the name, and that's all we have going for it. So NVIDIA GeForce Experience has updated if you use their studio drivers, which if your computer is primarily dedicated to video editing or creative apps or whatever, you absolutely should. They have fixed a wide gamut of issues that I had for years with Premiere and Resolve. If you're using the studio drivers, the GeForce Experience app has updated to show you creative applications that it can supposedly optimize like it can the games. Now I'm going to open this here. Yep, okay, I wasn't sure if I had it open. So you can see here, no longer do I just have installed games listed here. I have OBS, I have Affinity, I have Lightroom, I have Resolve. The issue is unlike a game's graphics settings, there aren't always much by way of settings to actually do this. So this is really cool, and it's good that they're developing these features, and as they partner with the application developers to release updates for those programs, they will then have more settings they can control through this tool. And NVIDIA is still honestly one of the best, the best graphics card you can buy for creative work on Windows. But if we go in here, realistically, we have, like for Resolve right here, we have 3 settings. GPU processing mode, make sure it's set to CUDA because I'm on an NVIDIA graphics card. Of course, that's done by default when it detects your card anyway. Turn on GPU for Blackmagic raw decode. Of course. And then specifically there's another setting for red decode, which I don't have set, but I don't use red files. So that's fine. Like realistically, it doesn't do anything. If we go in here to OBS, it will just change the current program, or current profile, I guess, to use NVENC instead of whatever else you have set. I don't use it for OBS. If we go in here to Lightroom Classic, apparently Lightroom Classic is detecting as not using GPU for display, image processing, or at all. And so I'm going to click Optimize and it's going to turn those on. I thought I had those checked. Maybe I didn't. Maybe that explains some issues I've had. And then you come over here, enable OpenCL. Sure. I apparently didn't have that on for Affinity Designer. So it is changing settings that it thinks I don't have. Whether or not I actually have them, I'm not sure. And then you can see here I have like 50 entries for OBS, we have Streamlabs OBS, we have the Topaz AI upscaler stuff I'm using, but literally it's just selecting AI processor, NVIDIA GPU. Someone's suggesting Blender. I do have Blender installed and it is not showing up here, so currently they don't support that, I guess. It even has VLC, which apparently I don't have hardware accelerated video decoding set up, so now we do. It even works with Twitch Studio, which again just sets your encoder to NVENC. So I think the potential for this setting is high. I think they can work with programs to release updates that integrate more tightly and can do that. And overall, this is a great tool for people who don't want to mess with settings menus or who first install their creative programs on a new machine and they just want like some one-click setup options to get everything optimized. I think the utility for that is pretty cool, but I think it would be easy to oversell the value of this feature by saying it really does much of anything for most users, given the limited selection of options at the time. Obviously, this is brand new. I think they have a list of apps here that are supported, so we can take a look at that real quick here. And obviously, they will be adding more. So, of course, a bunch of Adobe apps, but not Premiere Pro. So we got Lightroom and Illustrator, basically. Bridge, who uses that anymore? We got a couple Affinity apps, Autodesk CAD stuff, Corel, Resolve, DxO apps, Nuke, that's impressive. Apps I don't recognize, ON1, Red Cine Pro, Streamlabs OBS, and then Topaz Labs. So not a huge list right now, but I think we will see more in time, and it will be exciting to see what they do with it at some point in time. Super shout out to Brad Chakos here, who, I probably said that wrong, but who does this article. He's I guess I could call him a buddy. Great guy. Love the work he does over here at PC World. Someone in chat, Rushdark Shadow, asked, do you recommend Studio Driver or Game Driver for NVIDIA running OBS? If you're doing game streaming and you play a bunch of like brand new games, you should probably stay on Game Ready just due to the optimization for like the brand new games as they come out. But generally speaking, most of my rigs, other than my dedicated gaming rig, run the studio drivers because they're released less frequently and they are, verified a lot more to be a lot more stable. So where you can get a quick game ready driver that starts causing crashes or other issues that then they have to release a hotfix for. They haven't yet released a studio driver for that version, and they're waiting until everything is fixed up and more stable. And it seems to handle specific issues like VRAM allocation and things like that that I have run into with video editing and specific plugins and things like that a lot better. I spent a good couple years tracking down an issue with my Red Giant plugins where both in Premiere and Resolve, I would just start running into issues where it would say it's out of VRAM and couldn't perform the effect, or it would just outright crash, that I was blaming Red Giant for and then submitting feedback to NVIDIA for. And then I actually went to Windows at Level 1 Techs, and we used one of the Radeon 7 graphics card where you could use system RAM as VRAM, and we allocated like 128 gigs of VRAM to the graphics card, and that was sort of a workaround, but not an obviously very usable scenario. And then after all of that tracking, they released the studio drivers, and immediately that fixed my issue, and I've been on them ever since. But again, for brand new games, you generally want some of those driver optimizations as well. Someone said Premiere Pro needs a complete rewrite to support this. Given the minimal support in the other apps, that is not true, because it could turn on using CUDA in the Mercury Decode, using hardware encoding in the H.264 settings. Like, there are settings it can enable, even if it's not great. So there's that. Got a couple final topics here. One from PC Gamer. Steam is rolling out more controls for the store to browse and find games in more granular ways, which this article is calling a little bit overkill, probably. It was an experimental option in Steam Labs and is now rolled out. You get new categories such as new and noteworthy, top sellers, new and trendy, current specials, recently updated, popular, upcoming, all of that. But then you have themes or player support, genres, things like that. So you can really fine-tune the game you want to find. And honestly, this is kind of important, as there are so many games releasing on Steam every day now that while it seems like a lot of control, I think it's kind of necessary to navigate Steam's massive library of games. Speaking of games, Xbox has announced, I got this in an email, they probably have a formal announcement somewhere, but they have announced that every free-to-play game available for Xbox no longer requires Xbox Live Gold. Now, there are some games on Xbox historically that have, released that were free to play that didn't require Xbox Live Gold before. That concept itself is nothing new. I believe Fortnite is one such game, but there have been plenty of games with free to play multiplayer where you still needed Xbox Live Gold to play them, and they are making a system-wide policy change as of a couple days ago where no free to play games require Xbox Live Gold. You just need to access the service and you can play it without paying for it, which is phenomenal. I don't know how this is working out in the business sense, but Xbox is putting out so much goodness to be the most gamer/consumer friendly option out there. It's pretty insane, especially given all the kerfuffle we've talked about with PlayStation. This also means that Halo Infinite will be able to be played on Xbox without paying a dime if all things go well, because they have said before that the core multiplayer for Halo Infinite would be free to play. Everyone assumed that then they would push you to Games Pass for the core game. But now they're saying that you don't even need Xbox Live Gold in order to play the free to play multiplayer game. And so effectively, one of their biggest titles coming out soon will be playable without paying a dime other than having the console itself, which gives their consoles so much value, especially for the price of the Xbox Series S. If you can get your hands on them. For $300, you get 1440p 120 Hz gaming or 1080p 120 Hz gaming, and you get free-to-play games plus Game Pass being a great value. It is bonkers. Along with that, they have worked with EA, and a huge set of their titles from EA Play now support the Xbox FPS Boost feature, which boosts games up from their original frame rate caps to either 60 Hz or 120 Hz, including Battlefield games, Titanfall games, Mirror's Edge, Unraveled, Battlefront, Plants vs. Zombies. All support 120 Hz on the new Xbox Series X game consoles now, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then some other games that were previously locked to 30 FPS will now boost up to 60 FPS. Some of these will work on Xbox Series S. Some of them will work on Xbox Series X. They have a whole chart here detailing that which games will run on what on the Series S or Series X. So for example, Battlefield 4 can run at 120 Hz on X and S, but Battlefield 1 and V only run at 120 Hz on the Xbox Series X. And so you can go through and see which games from EA specifically will do this. Watch Dogs gets updated to 60 Hz on both consoles, as does Sniper Elite 4, Far Cry 4, Prey, Fallout 76, Fallout 4, Dishonored. This is awesome. They are providing not only incredible value for just getting games and playing them in the first place, but making them run so much better as well. And like I said, I just have to continue to applaud Xbox here for their continuing to just be the gamers company these days, which wasn't always the case. And I'm glad someone's doing it, since Jim Ryan is running PlayStation into the ground at the moment. All right, last couple articles here. Pokemon Snap is getting a printer through the 2019 Instax Mini Link. They are doing a dedicated bundle with it, which will allow you to connect it to your Nintendo Switch and print out your Pokemon Snap games or pictures for the new Pokemon Snap. And it looks like it will work with Animal Crossing and some other stuff as well. And collect a real Pokedex photo album. I am so stoked for this. I am so nostalgic for Pokemon Snap. I just wanted to cover it. There's another 90s. All right. Goodbye, random person spamming the Black Magic camera. We're going to put you in timeout. There you go. Also in 90s toys, Tamagotchi is getting a new Tamagotchi. It's the Tamagotchi Pix. It's going to have a selfie camera on it, or a camera of some sort. And it's coming out in June, I believe. Pre-orders are going live. It's $59.99. It's going live in July. I'm sorry. And Tamagotchi was a very big cultural part of my childhood, even though it wasn't anything too crazy. So I am stoked to see that come out as well. Lastly, I wanted to showcase a Kickstarter, which a couple people have pointed out that there are other similar projects which will do this, but this is a Kickstarter project that is effectively a cart dumper, but also something else. So you put in your carts, and it only supports 3 consoles for now: the Nintendo, the NES, the Super NES, and the Sega Genesis. You have different cart attachments you put in it, and then you attach it to your computer, you put in the cart, and it dumps your ROM, and then you can play that ROM in multiplayer with other people over the internet with low latency. So it's combining a couple different technological concepts here: the ROM dumping, the multiplayer over the internet with low latency for ROM-based games, and the fact that you only need one person with the game in order to play online. So you can pull up your singular copy of Xenocrisis, as it shows on Sega Genesis, and then you can invite your friends to play with you, and it even supports video chatting and things like that. And I believe the front supports controller plugs for like USB controllers. I'm not entirely sure. That's what it looks like. And it's designed to look like a little console. And then they also, they're very proud of this glass dome that they have made to cover up the cartridge slot. I think it's a little silly. But overall, the concept is pretty sick. I have already backed it on Kickstarter with the full purchase of getting one of these to test out for myself if they reach the goal. I haven't checked on it recently in terms of goal reaching. It just launched, so they still have 28 days to go. It looks like they have... Oh, they got funded in 20 hours. Never mind. They are already completely funded. They have raised $111,000 out of their $75,000 goal. So pretty sick. There's a lot of stuff involved here, assuming it plays well, assuming, it supports a variety of controllers on the other people's ends. The browser playback is great, all of that. And hopefully they can expand other cartridge support as well. Like I said, they only support... Oh, this says you... Oh, yeah. Okay, so these are stretch goals. So the primary system supports NES, SNES, and Genesis. But then they have stretch goals for Game Boy Advance and Game Boy ROMs, local multiplayer options, which I don't understand why you would develop this without local multiplayer being possible. But that is the first stretch goal that they have already reached. And hopefully they add more as well. But they are working on this. And it seems pretty sick, assuming, like I said, it lives up to the playtesting desires that obviously the retro community has very strong needs for certain things. But obviously this is for also more mainstream gamers where you have a bunch of friends who aren't hardcore retro collectors and you want to play with them over the internet, especially since, as cool as my, game room I have built over there may be, in the middle of a pandemic, I'm not inviting people over to play in it. So pretty cool stuff. I wish that existed in the 90s. Don't we all? Lots of games that they've listed that they already know is supported. Obviously, you won't be able to play every game you own, so that will be a concern, is which games they get working and blah, blah, blah. Also, it looks like there might be a paid subscription service involved for other games, which is depressing if so. But I just wanted to feature it because I think it's pretty sick, and I like supporting Kickstarter projects that I like. So, yeah, just wanted to mention that. A couple of people kept mentioning that this stream should be sponsored by Sunkist. I don't disagree. However, I think at this point, it's probably not happening. I have tried for a while. It doesn't seem to be happening. Anyway, Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Streamer News. Thank you so much for your support. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more tech education and stream guides. I'm your host, EposVox, the Stream Professor. And I'll see y'all next week for another Streamer News and a couple really cool videos. Peace! Ooh, please sponsor me.